what I got from the quote, though, was this a strange sort of reverse situation whereby it seemed that you were saying that you got to know your characters by watching them in action.
No. Well, yes, sort of like that. That often I'll require a character to do something which might be patently ridiculous or unrealistic, and I'll work and work and work and work and work until the action appears reasonable. And by that time, it's grown out of something very deep in the person's character, so it isn't just some string-pulling author wanting the character to do something, which it is in the beginning. But by the end, like all of us, our characters are, in a sense, if not made, at least clearly represented by our actions. We are how we act. And actors know this really well. And I mean, actors know, for instance, we watch an actor who creates his or her character physically, and they start with the way the body moves and how it is, and the character in a way is learned and known through those things.
I noticed that you, in interviews, you tend to get rather testy with interviewers who ask you, where's the Peter Carey in the story, because most authors, in fact, don't like to be asked about the autobiographical elements.
Well, frankly, I mean, it's fucking stupid. I mean, this is not what we do. We make things up. And one of the worst things, for instance, about doing a reading is that having spent 3 years inventing characters, and you suddenly reduce it all into your own particular gestures and voice and so on. Everyone says, oh, we get it. That's how it's meant to be, but that's exactly how it's not meant to be, because one is trying to escape. If I want to write about myself, believe me, I don't lack the courage, and I don't lack the skill, and I can do it, and I've done it. I mean, it's a whole different ball of wax, and I'm happy to do it, and it's thrilling, and the risks are personal and emotional, but it's not like writing a novel, and I'm not at all interested. I mean, there is a big gap somewhere between art and self-expression, and I'm not in the business of therapy. I'm not in the business of writing about myself, unless you come to me with a big checkbook, and then I might do it at the weekend. But you really are trying to make a work of art, and so I'm all of those people, not just Madame Bovary saying, well, I mean, it's all of them, and I would say people tend to think, if there's a male character and the lead male character, to use movie terms, then that really must be me. But you have to inhabit all of the characters, and in a way, none of them will really work unless you learn to love them, at least in some way. And so they're all in a way spun out of me and patched together from observation and the expediency of the storyteller. So,
well, just two little observations to close on. It is interesting that painters seem to find it necessary to paint self-portraits from time to time. I mean, Vincent did, 97, I think? Rembrandt did many.
Well, Vincent was not well, of course.
Rembrandt was okay.
But he was a genius, perhaps. But
Cézanne did them too. They all do them. I mean, all painters paint themselves from time to time. My feeling is that perhaps one of the reasons that writers don't like this type of question is because the difference between me and you as a writer is that most people are so self-absorbed that they can't be novelists. You have to get rid of self-absorption.
Yes, you have to move
away from yourself in order to be a novelist. And that's the whole challenge and trick, if you like.
I think that's a really good observation. But I really would like to remind you that I really that's for the self-portraits. I mean, there are at least 4 pieces of memoir, short memoir, which I've written, which I'm really proud of. So I mean, if I'm going to do the self-portrait thing, then I'll do it. Do I have a burning need to do it? I don't know. I've done it. I'm proud of those pieces. I think you're completely right. About the, from my point of view anyway, I share your ideas about the novel. The one has to be free of self. Self is not really the point.
And that's why people can't write. Most people don't write novels. They can't break through that self-absorption.
It takes a certain saintliness to do it. I read a little bit of this.
We'd asked Peter to start at the beginning, but there the voice, the first-person voice, is that of a young woman, and he didn't feel comfortable, and so he's plunging somewhere into the middle.
let me just read you this little bit, and I can do this a little bit because I can almost do the voice. This is a moment where the editor of the Little Avant-Garde magazine, who's published this hoax, has died and is thought to have committed suicide, although the story may be indeed more complicated. He's been in the middle of a court case where he's been published for obscenity. He's being buried at the Melbourne General Cemetery, which some of us know quite well. Although I've invented things about the Melbourne General Cemetery that are absolutely not true. And Chubb, the creator of the hoax, has felt he's had to go to the cemetery. And any of us who know Melbourne, know that feelings are likely to run very high on these occasions, and that he's already outside the pale and is probably going to take a terrible beating later on. Let me just. And the character who's died, the editor, his name is Weiss, and the monster poet, the hoax poet, has already once been cited in the court, interrupting, but we're not really quite sure who he is. Once the plain pine coffin had been lowered into the ground, he knew the crowd would drift back to the Café Latin to recite poetry and weep, and finally become pugnacious on their dead friend's behalf. A part of him wished to go with them, to take his punishment and have it done with, but it would have taken a thicker skin than he possessed, and so he withdrew deeper into the cemetery. It had rained in the morning, and the air smelled of mud and smoke from the cottages of Carlton, and he headed at a brisk pace towards the very northern end of the cemetery, near the so-called children's graveyard, which dates from the influenza epidemic of 1921. Later, when he was a father, he could not have endured the place, but now he sought it out in order to find peace of mind. He heard his pursuer before he saw him. He recognized the noise, shoes fitted with those parsimonious little metal plates, the hallmark of the petit bourgeois, and therefore as vile to Chubb as they had been beloved to his mother. This sound came nearer and nearer, and it soon became clear that he would not be able to escape his pursuer without running, and he had already suffered humiliation enough. After rounding a bend in the path, he stopped and turned, ready to face whatever punishment awaited him. When the figure appeared at the corner of a cypress hedge, Chubb saw the lunatic who had provided such embarrassment in court. Although not technically a giant, he was very close to 7 feet in height. Chubb had noted his strong Australian accent and had formed an impression of someone working class, not well educated. He was therefore surprised that the man was dressed expensively in black. His long flowing hair, being also dark, served to accentuate his pale skin and his striking features, these being distinguished by their individual size: strong chin, large proud nose, prominent cheekbones, high forehead from which the mane of hair was brushed straight back. It was a powerful face, masculine, intelligent, and rather angry. When he reached out his hand, Chubb thought he intended to shake, but instead found his right hand swiftly seized and held. No matter how he struggled, he could not disengage, so when the stranger started up the bitumen path, his only recourse would have been to cry for help. "What do you want of me?" he asked. "There is no other bugger I can tell apart from you," the stranger said, "for there is no one but you who is as bad as me."